an understanding of what happened today and how material it might be for any success with this case? I'm joined by legal expert Elton Hart, who joins us in studio. Thank you so much for coming in. It's always great to have our guests in studio. So, Elton, my understanding is that a docket is opened when someone goes and lays a complaint with the police, and into that docket goes all the investigations compiled by the police. At the point at which they think we've got a strong case, it's then handed to the NPA, to a prosecutor, who looks at it, and if they believe that there's a case to be prosecuted, they sign it and then issue an indictment, which I suppose would lead to an arrest. Have I got that roughly right?
Sally, roughly you've summarized it very nicely, and obviously when a person, or when there's a what we call a culpable incident that happens, let's now use the one of Senzo Meyiwa. There was a culpable incident that happened and it caused his death, and obviously they register a docket at the police station, and then the investigation work will start. But in this instance, and most of us have seen, there is also forensic investigation that takes place, especially on murder scenes, that they have to gather evidence that they will use for use at the trial later on. And that's how the process would unfold, and then it would be given to a prosecutor. Normally you get like a control prosecutor at a specific court. They will have a look at the docket. If they feel it's a high-profile case, they will discuss it with the senior state prosecutor, and they will refer it to the DPP, so that the DPP gives an instruction to say, listen, yeah, let's prosecute, or the NDPP, let's prosecute. And I think today in court there was the certificates that was talked about who signed it off, on what day it was signed off. But that's irrelevant. It can be signed off on any day. It just means that it needs to meet the formalities.
And the important thing about the second docket is that it was never signed off for prosecution. Am I right?
Yes, obviously, if the second docket is never signed off to prosecute, then it means that the NPA as yet, they feel in that docket there's not sufficient evidence to proceed at that moment. But later on, evidence can emerge that will help them to now proceed.
So how unusual is it for two dockets to be opened in one case?
This is the first time for me, Sally, for all the years, 18 years that I've been doing criminal law. This is the first time that I actually see, for a single culpable offence, that you have two dockets. And the culpable offence is that the death of Senzo Meyiwa. How tragic it was, but you cannot have, because it's a single cause of action. You need to have one docket, because it's not two murders that happened, it's one. So the two dockets, in essence, already for me, where there's smoke, there's fire.
What do you think is going on? Because we know that there were two lines of investigation, but that surely can fall under one docket. You can divide your investigation team into, okay, you go and check out the people in the house to see if there's anything suspicious. You go and look at the forensic evidence to see if it links to any other crimes. But all of that surely at some point has to come together into one most likely theory of what happened. That didn't seem to have happened here.
Yeah, you can see that. And this is now feeding into this conspiracy theories and all sorts of theories that's also hanging around in the public domain. Because now it looks like what Advocate Tefu was going at, to say that this crime scene was staged. Yeah. For me, even as a legally trained person, now I'm looking at it and say, okay, now I have the problem here. Because if the first sets of accused is acquitted, and they come with the version and say that the Kumalos, the Piri, and the Twalas that was on the scene of the crime is actually the perpetrators, and they get acquitted. And later on, the state starts now to say, okay, let's go after these 7 people. But these accused, they've been acquitted. They will not come and testify to say, we'll testify and support your case. And then maybe they won't have enough evidence in the second docket either. And then it's 2 acquittals. And then Senzo Meyiwa's family will never get justice. And how I look at it now, it's already, I'm seeing we're going into a dark road for this trial.
Yeah, it's really worrying that the relevant information wasn't perhaps put together in one docket. Do you have an understanding of how the information in the second docket came into play? Because Advocate Tefu seemed to know all about it, but Advocate Mshololo, who represents accused number 5, didn't have the information.
Yes, I can say as early as around about March, Advocate Mshololo had rumors, or there was already cries that there is a second docket. But obviously we must also now know Advocate Tefu is a previous SAPS member. So he knows the inner circles and he knows people inside. So I think maybe he used this inside lane to actually get wind of this docket, and it was disclosed to him at a very early stage. Advocate Mshololo only received the docket, I think it was last week.
Yeah.
So she has a right to actually ask for postponement so that she can go through the docket with her client consult.
What do you make of Advocate Tefu strongly being against any postponement? I mean, it sounds to me on the face of it reasonable that Advocate Mshololo, who's only now got eyes on this docket, needs a bit of time to look at it. Talk to me about Advocate Tefu, because it's not only that he seems to be pushing hard against the other defence lawyer, but also with the judge. Is this behaviour you've seen in court before? Does this sort of thing happen? It's just that we haven't been exposed to it on television.
No, sometimes you get instances where the defense lawyers is going hard at the judge, is going hard at the state, and even sometimes amongst opponents. But amongst opponents, that's the rarest of them all. Because you guys are teaming up as a unit to actually now poke holes in the state's case. Now, I think it's not helping the defense teams that they are actually at each other's throats at this point in time. They should be working in tandem to actually say, state, your case beyond reasonable doubt cannot be proved. And the behavior of Tefu in court, I mean, a judge should have chastised him, and I think it's maybe because the cameras is there that the judge is a little bit lenient, not to be seen as to prejudicing the accused because of their legal representative's behavior. And I think that's why maybe the judge, Maumela, is just a little bit relaxed on this issue. But normally, when you get to high courts, the judges would be chastising you very quickly to say, listen,
So you wouldn't normally dare to say the sorts of things.
You can say it, but there's a way of saying it, not to offend a person.
What is the... Advocate Mshololo, she used a phrase a couple of times today. She was really angry, and she said this could amount to a miscarriage of justice, what has happened so far. How serious do you regard what's been going on with this trial? I mean, we're only into witness number one, and there are all these other issues. Are they side issues that are eventually going to be cleared away and will get to the heart of the trial? Or do you believe they could actually scupper this trial?
No, I think the trial as it stands now, and with the forensic evidence that's in front of court already, the mere fact that you find the bullet the next day already shows to me there was contamination of the crime scene. So for me already, this trial is already so much damaged that I don't see a way back for the NPA to repair this. And even if they want to come with a second docket, it's going to be scary, because now if the judge makes a finding on the credibility of the witnesses now in this trial, the NPA will not be able to use them in the second docket, because then the judge has already made a credibility finding against the witnesses. So that's one of the risks that we are running here. And also this thing of, it looks like the dockets are separate, and it looks like two separate trials is running. And the accused in one trial can just blame the accused in the other trial, and vice versa. And then miscarriage of justice. And that is what Advocate Mshololo, but also to say, listen, yeah, I need to see this docket so that I make sure I defend my client to the best of my ability, so that my client can't say, I did not do my best. So she is well within her rights, and I think Advocate Tefu has to just step off the gas a little bit and let her do her thing. And eventually, I think with the rate at which Advocate Mshololo is going, she's going and she's targeting the right and relevant spots where to break down the state's case.
Going to be very interesting to see where it transpires, and of course one's thoughts are with the family who are just wanting an answer and for some closure. Thank you so much for coming into studio this evening. That was legal expert Elton Hart talking about what's been happening with the Senzo Meyiwa trial.